Welcome back, you. We're diving deep into the California wildfires today.
Yeah, going way beyond the headlines.
Exactly.
It's a story about tech, about climate change, about fighting fire with, well,
Yeah.
more fire.
It's a fascinating story.
It is, absolutely.
I mean, start with the technology, right?
Okay.
California is using AI, they're using drones.
Right.
They've got this network of over 1,100 cameras
Yeah,
just
it's incredible.
scanning for smoke plumes.
Like something out of science fiction.
Right.
That is.
Over 1,000 cameras constantly watching for fire.
Mhm.
But then there's this thing, the 60-second dilemma, right?
Yeah.
Climate scientist Daniel Swain, he makes this point that even with all this technology,
Right.
it's still almost impossible to catch a wildfire in that first minute. It really is.
It really highlights the limits of technology,
It's sobering, huh? It is.
all that tech and still not enough.
Yeah.
So let's talk about the impact of these fires.
We've got the Pacific Palisades fire, 22,000 acres burned.
Yeah.
I mean, picture it. That's like 15,000 football fields.
Wow.
All turned to ash, gone.
Just incredible.
5,300 buildings destroyed in just 4 days.
And it's not just buildings, over 150,000 people evacuated.
Oh, yeah, of course.
At least 10 lives lost. It's
The human cost.
the human cost is immeasurable.
And the financial fallout is just...
Astronomical. Estimated losses between 130 billion and 150 billion dollars.
Wow.
4%, maybe even more,
Yep.
of California's GDP wiped out.
It's hard to even fathom that kind of impact, families, businesses, the whole state's economy. So why is this happening? Is this just, nature at its worst?
You've got these incredibly strong Santa Ana winds.
Right.
All the vegetation is bone dry from the drought,
Yeah.
The humidity is low. It's like
Yeah.
throwing gasoline on a fire.
Wow. So it really is a perfect storm,
It really is, yeah.
a recipe for disaster.
Yeah.
But there's got to be more to it than that, right?
Well, yeah, all of these conditions, the wind, the dryness, the heat, they're intensified by climate change.
Oh, of course.
Warmer temperatures,
Yeah.
changing weather patterns, it's
all connected.
it's definitely a factor.
So we've got the tech, we've got the climate, but I feel like there's another layer to this.
Yeah.
Like choices and the consequences of those choices.
You're absolutely right. The source material talks about budget cuts to wildfire prevention funding.
Oh, wow.
It's a tough situation, isn't it? How do you
Yeah.
balance limited resources with these unpredictable risks?
Yeah, because when things are calm,
Right.
it's hard to justify that big spending on prevention.
Right. And then bam,
Yeah.
disaster strikes.
And then you've got the whole urbanization issue too, right? More and more homes are being built in these high-risk fire zones.
Exactly.
I mean, doesn't that just increase everyone's vulnerability?
Absolutely. It's a major factor. It really makes you think, should building codes be stricter?
It's a good question.
Should we rethink land use planning?
Yeah.
I don't know.
It's a complex issue. There's no easy answers.
No, definitely not.
Not at all. And that's what makes this whole situation so challenging. It's just this web of interconnected factors.
Yeah, it really is a perfect storm of different factors.
It is.
But then what happens next, right?
Right.
We've talked about the tech, the scale of the disaster, environment, even human choices.
Yeah.
But how do we move forward? How do we even begin to think about recovery?
Well, and that's the big question, right?
Yeah.
California, they're already grappling with issues like homelessness, housing shortages,
Right.
and these fires. I mean, they just make everything so much more complicated.
It's like
They put a huge strain on resources.
one crisis just feeding into the next, It's like this domino effect.
Yeah.
Exactly. And it's not just about rebuilding what was lost.
Right.
It's about rebuilding in a way that creates these stronger communities.
More resilient communities?
More resilient, exactly.
So, I mean, out of everything we've talked about so far,
Yeah.
what do you think is the most important takeaway?
For me, I think it's it's how everything is connected. You can't look at these wildfires as just isolated events,
Yeah.
They're a product of
Right.
climate change,
Yeah.
of policy decisions,
Right.
urban development,
Even individual choices. Right?
even individual choices. Exactly.
Yeah.
It really highlights how we're all part of this complex ecosystem.
Right.
And our actions, they have consequences.
So it's easy to get caught up in the immediacy of it all, right?
It is.
The disaster itself.
Yeah.
But You're right. We need to zoom out a little
We
to
do.
see the bigger picture.
Because the bigger picture is one of increasing vulnerability, right?
Yeah.
These fires, they're just a glimpse into a future where these types of events are becoming more frequent, more
And
intense.
not just in California,
I
around.
know this is happening all over the world.
So for those of us listening, maybe living in places that feel very far removed from California,
Yeah.
why should we care?
Because I mean, climate change it doesn't respect state lines.
Yeah.
It's a global issue.
Right.
So whether it's wildfires, floods, hurricanes, droughts, we're all going to face the consequences of a
Yeah.
changing climate one way or another.
So what's happening in California is really a wake-up call
It is.
for all of us.
It is, yeah, a reminder that we're not immune
No.
to these types of disasters no matter where we live.
And it makes you ask yourself some tough questions. Like,
It does that.
are we going to keep just reacting to crises as they happen? Or are we going to start taking steps
Yeah.
to mitigate risk, to build those more resilient communities?
Right. That's the challenge, right?
It is. It is.
That's the choice we all face.
It feels like we're at this really critical turning point,
Yeah.
Stakes are incredibly high,
Absolutely.
but so is the potential for
Yeah.
change. I think.
Yeah, we can't afford to be overwhelmed
No.
by the scale of the challenge,
Right.
We gotta take that energy, that feeling of oh gosh, this is so big,
Yeah.
and turn it into solutions,
Yeah.
create a more sustainable and resilient future.
And I love that because it's about finding that balance between, recognizing how serious the situation is, but not letting it,
Right.
paralyze us.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. And that's where, informed action comes in. We
Yeah.
need to engage with the science, listen to different perspectives,
Be open.
be open, challenge our own assumptions.
Yeah.
And the more we understand these issues, the better equipped we'll be to make a difference.
Because knowledge is power.
Right.
Right.
Absolutely.
Understanding these complex problems, that's the first step towards, navigating them, demanding change, being part of the solution.
It is. And that's what makes these deep dives so valuable. We're not just skimming the surface.
Right.
We're going deep into the research.
Yeah.
The data, the expert opinion.
All of it.
To really understand the nuances.
And hopefully along the way,
Yeah.
spark some of those aha moments that can lead to real change.
Those moments of insight, those are what drive innovation and new solutions. So
Yeah.
as we wrap up this deep dive into the California wildfires,
Yeah.
what's one final thought you want to leave our listeners with? Something to really ponder, something that maybe wasn't explicitly mentioned in the source material,
Right.
but builds on everything we've discussed.
Yeah. It's a lot to think about.
It is.
The tech, the impact, the climate,
Right. All of it.
all these choices.
Yeah. But here's another thing to consider.
Yeah.
We've talked about prevention. We've talked about response. But
Yeah.
what about recovery?
Yeah. Good
How do
story.
we rebuild these communities, right?
Yeah.
Not just rebuild, but rebuild in a way that makes them more resilient, more sustainable,
More prepared.
more prepared. Yeah,
And
exactly.
then the next one. Yeah.
For the next one, because chances are
Yeah.
it's coming.
Yeah. You're right.
So how do we rebuild in a way that recognizes,
Yeah.
that the climate is changing and these events are going to become more frequent?
Right. So it's not enough to just put out the fires.
No,
We've got to build back
we got to build back better,
better. Yeah.
smarter,
Smarter, be ready.
be
I
ready.
really said that next challenge.
Exactly. And this isn't just a lesson for California. This is a lesson for everyone.
For all of us.
You're
yeah.
all interconnected.
Yeah.
We all share responsibility for
Yeah.
this planet. And we all have the power to create a more sustainable future.
It's a big challenge.
It is.
But it feels like
There is so much potential
there's a lot of potential.
for positive change, We just got to keep learning, keep asking those tough questions, keep pushing for solutions. Couldn't agree more. That's the spirit we need to carry forward.
Absolutely.
So, as we wrap up this deep dive into the California wildfires,
Yeah.
I hope you'll walk away with a deeper understanding
Mm-hmm.
of the complex forces at play here and a renewed sense of hope
Yes.
that we can collectively build a better future.
So well said. And on that note of hope
Yeah.
and action, we're going to wrap up this deep dive.
It's been a pleasure.
Thanks for joining us. And keep those minds curious, you.